Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Kiefer. I'm the Director of Sales Engineering at Interdyne, and I would like to welcome you to this afternoon's presentation. Today, I'm going to be speaking about Massachusetts public record laws and how Interdyne email archiving solutions can help you become compliant with those laws. The conference area has been muted, so I am the only person who can speak. At the end of the presentation, though, I will take questions. On your GoToWebinar interface, there is a question area. Please feel free at any time during the presentation to enter questions in there, and at the end of the presentation, I will do my best to answer those questions. One other quick note, what I am talking about today is a legal topic. I just want you to understand that I am not a lawyer, so please do not take this presentation as being a formal legal opinion. You are strongly advised to speak with the counsel of the entity that you are associated with. So what I'm going to be doing today, I'll spend a couple minutes explaining who Interdyne is, and then jump into the meat of the presentation, talk about what makes an email a public record in Massachusetts, how long email should be kept, and then lastly, how Interdyne solutions can help. Interdyne has been around since 2002. We are based in snowy Minneapolis, Minnesota. We do have an international customer base, though. We have customers all around the world. The product has been on the market since 2004, and we were the first appliance-based email archive appliance in North America, and we're also the first appliance-based email archive appliance to actually offer client integration. So, talk here a little bit now about what makes email a public record in Massachusetts. So there are very specific laws in Massachusetts that determines what a public record is. There is an extract of that law on the screen right now. Notice it is in two parts. Generally, the law has always been, public records have usually been associated with pieces of paper, and when the laws were written by the initial legislators, they really didn't have any idea of what the electronic future was going to look like. So there was actually an event in Boston back in 2009 that you may remember surrounding the Boston mayor Menino. An aide allegedly deleted about 6 months of the mayor's emails in an attempt to cover up a bribery scandal that was taking place. After this happened, the Massachusetts legislature did amend the statutes to specifically say that email should be subject to disclosure, retention, and maintenance as required by law, and basically to be treated the same way pieces of paper are kept in regards to public records. So the question then becomes, of those emails, what of those emails are truly public? The general assumption is everything is presumed to be public. Although the legislature has made statutory provisions to exempt certain materials from becoming public or from having to be shared with the public. There is a link on the screen here that will actually take you into a very detailed explanation of all of this. It'll exactly what all the exemptions are. There's about 21 of them. I am, though, briefly going to kind of talk about, just kind of as an example, what a couple of these exemptions are. And also, at some point this afternoon, my associate, Mark Anderson, who's in the sales area here, will send you copies of all these PDFs that I'm talking about. But you can also get them directly from the Secretary of State website in Massachusetts. So a couple of the examples of exemptions that are out there. The first one is the statutory exemption. Basically, this means that there's been a statute written that specifically says this information should not be shared with the public. So that would be one of the first exemptions that are out there. There's also an exemption for privacy, meaning information that, personal medical records, things like that, that specifically name an individual, that may not have to be shared with the public if the request is made for that information. And very closely related to that, there's an unnamed exemption classified as the letter O. That basically reaches out to home addresses, home telephone numbers of an employee. And actually, there's another exemption I'm not mentioning here that actually also extends this to family members as well. So would be very wise of you to get familiar with what these exemptions are, so that when you are responding to a public information request, you know exactly what you have to share with the people making that request. So big question then comes in, how long should I actually keep this information? Understanding, I have to make the assumption that, everything potentially needs to be shared with the public. How long should I keep this information? So the general rule of thumb is basically the same rules that apply to paper apply to those emails. But it has been acknowledged, it's basically the content of the email is what determines whether or not the information is truly public or not. It's been explicitly said that email systems are not to be treated as record-keeping systems. So just because you've instructed your users to file emails into a mailbox underneath their inbox of information that should be kept public, that does not meet what the law says you need to do. So basically, email users should screen and evaluate messages according to content. Big problem comes in there. Can you trust your users to do that? And then what are the repercussions if the users don't do it? Is someone else going to be held accountable for potentially the ignorance of the user, or just the laziness, or maybe the purposeful deletion of these messages? So it is strongly recommended that the messages be kept on something other than the email server. But doing that is not just as simple as printing out the email, from kind of the default printing features that are involved in email clients, because that's not going to give you all of the data that needs to be kept. The law specifically says that contextual data, this is sometimes referred to as metadata, needs to also be kept as part of the email because it is part of the record of that email, and that would include all the hidden things that are in the header. Every email server that the email is touched, hidden headers that have been added to the email, exactly when it was transmitted, when it was received. All that information has to be kept as part of the email, and that actually has been defined by the federal government. Has defined that, or the federal courts have defined that part of the email is truly part of the email and must be kept. So prior to the Manor scandal in Boston, the general rule of thumb was emails should generally be kept for 2 years. That has been extended a little bit here. As I said, there are exemptions and exceptions to this here. But in general here, you'll see on the screen kind of what the general recommendations are. And this applies, to paper as well as emails. So, general correspondence that is not directly related to the creation of policies or procedures should be kept for 3 years. This does not include, notes and drafts and things like that. There can be, lesser retention periods for that sort of information. But again, it becomes a very subjective subject, is who's making that judgment as to whether or not something is important enough to keep or not. So a safe rule of thumb is then, well, then I should keep more than necessary, because then I know I have exactly what I need to have. And as far as I'm aware of in Massachusetts, there is not any penalty for keeping information for longer than required. In some states, specifically Arizona, there are actually penalties in the law if entities keep emails or keep data for longer than the stated retention period. But in Massachusetts, I do not believe that applies. The other popular term of keeping emails is 5 years, and this would apply to correspondence that is directly related to policy development. So emails sent or received by individuals who exercise decision-making authority, those emails need to be kept. So if they're taking comments from the public on whether or not a certain ordinance should be put into effect, because that correspondence is related to that policy development, that correspondence should be kept for 5 years. Also, there's other things that actually this is this very short subset of all the different things and how long they need to be kept for. But just on this couple of things on this screen that aren't highlighted, like incident reports, personnel reports, things like that. How many of that information now is now submitted to supervisors via email, rather than what used to be, punching a time card or some paper system that now those reports, those incidents are sent via that email. That then makes that email subject to being retained according to the statutes. Some of the retention periods can get very, very specific based on the content of the email. So the last slide was kind of showing just kind of general correspondence, but it can get very specific and have specific time frames related to that content. For example, with the Highway Department, correspondence related to the selections of consultants is 7 years. And it doesn't matter whether that correspondence is in paper or email form. It must be kept for 7 years. This is just one example. There's literally pages and pages of rules as to what needs to be kept for how long. There are a couple documents available from the Secretary of State that will explain that information to you. And again, these documents I will ask Mr. Anderson to provide to you in an email this afternoon, so you don't have to go out and look for them on your own. So, a lot of information there to try to convey in 15 minutes or less, and so hopefully I've given you a good idea of what record retention laws mean to email and how important email is to actually be kept and managed. So now moving into how the Interdyne solutions can help you meet these statutory requirements. So don't worry, on the slide there are a lot of bullet points, but I'm not going to go through and talk in detail on every one. I'm going to hit kind of the highlights here, and then within the next 5 minutes or so, I'll actually take you into our product and show you what our product actually looks like, how easy it is to use, and how it can make that job of managing emails for compliance purposes extremely simple. So our product is delivered in an appliance format. It is available in a physical hardware version or a virtual version. So if you've virtualized your IT infrastructure using VMware or Hyper-V, you can get the product in that form factor. We are email system agnostic. This is probably what I think is probably one of the most important points on this slide. This means that basically no matter what your email server is, whether it's Exchange, IBM Lotus Domino, GroupWise, even if you're using a cloud email provider, that that you're a small entity and you don't have your own Exchange server, and you're using a hosted Exchange server, or you're using Google Apps, using Gmail, or using Microsoft Exchange or Office 365, which would include Exchange Online. We work with those systems as well. And in many cases, we can be much more cost-effective than the archiving offerings that those hosted solutions offer you. Once the data gets on our box, we do a number of things to reduce the size of that data. So we make the best use of your money as we can as far as storage goes. So we do what's called single instance storage. So if a message is sent from more than one recipient, we only keep one copy of that message. And then we also do deduplication of message bodies and message attachments. across the entire archive. What that means, if somebody receives an email and it has a Word document or a PDF file attached to it, it could be even a spreadsheet, we are going to keep only one copy of that attachment. But then if someone else also receives that or they forward it to someone else and it's actually contained in multiple emails, up on the archive there's only going to be one copy of it kept. So we save a considerable amount of space by doing that. When going to access emails, a couple different ways to do it. The method I'm going to show you today is using a web interface to access the archive, but we do have clients available for Outlook and Lotus Notes. When looking for emails, as you'll very soon see here when I actually get to the demo, very easy but yet very powerful to use search features. Not only are you searching within the emails themselves, you can also search within attachments of emails. And that may be exactly what makes that email a public record, is that attachment. And so you may not always be able to make the determination, by just looking at the email itself or even the name of that attachment as to whether or not it's something that's important enough to keep or you're required to keep. We give you the ability to actually search within those attachments as well. So when you're looking for something, in that email, you're actually looking through the entire email. So we'll look through Microsoft Office documents, Open Office documents, PDF files, any sort of text file. Doesn't matter whether it's TXT, RTF, HTML, etc. And we'll also look into archive files. We'll look into a zip file, tar files, and RAR files down to 6 levels deep to see if they contain anything that needs to be indexed or can be indexed. When doing searches, you can just do a very simple search looking for one word, in the email or a phrase in the email. But you can also do more complex searches very easily. You can do fuzzy searches, which are looking for misspelled words. You can do proximity searches, which are looking for words in relationship to other words. You can also use Boolean operators to make searches either more exclusive or inclusive. Once you've defined a search, you can save that search criteria, and then you can go back to it either as a reference for a future search, or if you know you're going to need to rerun that search, you can very easily do it with a click of a mouse button. And actually, once you have that search saved, you can actually schedule it to run automatically. So one of the other things that you can use an email archive for is you can actually use it as kind of as a monitoring tool of your email system. So you can actually be scanning emails, looking for inappropriate content, whether it be maybe violence related or sexual harassment related. You can actually build searches and search for emails that contain that content, and then have it automatically generate a report and be sent to the appropriate person saying that these X number of emails were found that contain this information, and then provide you with a link that where you can go look at that information. So we are compatible with most directory systems that are out there. So users, if they're accessing the system, they can use their common credentials. Another important point here is legal hold. This ties into data retention. So on the other earlier slides, I was talking about how some emails you need to keep for 2 years, some you need to keep for 5 years. If emails are part of a lawsuit, which is kind of what happened back with the Boston mayor back in 2009, where the aide deleted those emails, our product gives you the ability to put legal holds on emails. So it would prevent them from ever being deleted. So if you had a data retention period set where it was going to only keep things for 2 years, if you put a legal hold on something, it's going to prevent that message from ever being deleted from the archive. Also related and very, very important is the fact that the only way emails can be deleted from our system is by that data retention policy. So someone can't go in, whether it be a user or an administrator, and individually or even in batch, delete emails. The only way emails can be deleted is by that data retention policy. So referring again back to the scandal in Boston, that aide, if they would have had the email stored on an archive system, the aide wouldn't have been able to go in and delete those emails. Just would not have had the ability to do so. In Microsoft Exchange environments, in addition to emails, we can also archive contacts and calendar items. Security, very, very granular. Obviously, as kind of as alluded to, end users can be set up to search only their own emails. You can also set up accounts for, I like to say, kind of the big brother type accounts, or this would be, the clerk who's responsible for responding to public information requests. They potentially could have access to everyone's emails. So when a request comes in, they can simply search, for the name of the project or what's specifically being asked for, and automatically have access to the search across everybody's emails. And then to back that up, there are audit logs. So if someone has that power to look across everyone's emails, we do keep track of what they're doing on the box. So if they're, every time they search an email or every time they open an email, there's a permanent record of that made in our device. So if someone has the ability to look at other people's emails, and maybe they're looking at them for the wrong reasons, that's going to be recorded, and action can be taken if need be. It's also a protective tool. If someone would make the allegation that maybe something was leaked to the media, you can very easily go to the archive and see who accessed that information, and when. Obviously, we're not going to track what's happening inside individual users' mailboxes, but once a copy of the message is put in the archive, which is pretty much real time, that information would be available to you. Information is very easy to get off the box. You can individually forward emails when you find them in the search results. You can also forward groups of emails. When you do a search and find numerous results, you can forward all those. You can also print directly to PDF. So if you need to provide the email to someone else and you want to provide it in a PDF form, you can very easily do that without having to have a PDF tool on your local desktop. And emails can also be bulk exported. So if you are responding to, say, a legal discovery request, or even a public information request where there's multiple emails involved, you can select all those emails, kind of group them together in one batch, and then export them all at once and provide one file that contains all of those emails. So next here, what I'll do is actually jump in and show you what the product looks like. So I'm going to first log in here as an account that's been set up to kind of mimic what an end user would look like. What I don't see on this screen are all the administrative controls that are associated with it, with the unit. I will here in a minute log in those as administrator so you can see all of the other options. But I just wanted to show how straightforward and non-confusing the screen is. So there's not a huge learning curve on learning how to use this product. Very easy for someone to basically just sit down, log in, and figure out exactly what they need to do on here. By default, we do give you 4 parts of the email that can be searched on, but you're not limited to those parts. This add search term pull-down box will give you all the different specific parts of the email that can be searched on. You can search all the way down to the granularity of the message ID. You can pick and choose any of these fields, use them multiple times, use them in conjunction with each other. On this particular box, there are a set of emails that came from Enron Corporation, and as such, they were used in federal trials, and as such, they became public information. So companies like ours use these as kind of our demo messages. Partially because of the irony, they are the Enron emails. If it wasn't for that fiasco, the whole email archiving, the importance of it, wouldn't have gained in popularity as fast as it did. And also, more importantly, they're just actually human-generated emails. So taking this as an example, if you were trying to use the system to respond to a public information request, the request may revolve around a particular project. In this example, I'm just going to come in and type, look for, show me all the emails that contain the 2 words ethanol project. Submit this search, and it found the two emails that met this criteria. From this point, I can deal with the search results in total. I can select the messages and choose to export them, forward them, or print them. Or obviously, I can also drill into the message, look at the contents of the message. And also from here then, I have the ability to forward the message, which would prompt me to put an email address to send a copy of this message to. See what the raw headers here. So as I said, the importance, you are required to keep all of the information related to the email. So this is actually, what the full header looks like. It's not just the sender, the receiver, the subject, and the date time. There's a lot of information that's contained within that, that envelope or that metadata that you are required to keep. So we give you the ability to very easily go to that and see that and prove to someone that you have it. You can also print the PDF, which is going to just simply create a PDF of the file that you can then, choose to save to your local desktop. You can also print from here, so this basically just put it into a browser-friendly screen without all the other, distractions on the screen that you can print directly to whatever printer is configured to work with your browser. And then also, this is very useful in the realm of a public records request. You could actually add comments to messages themselves. So you can come in here if you're providing an email as part of a public information request, you can actually document in here what you did with this email. Document that you provided the email to a particular person, and once you hit the add comment, there's a permanent association now with this email that also then becomes searchable as well. So if you did make all the public information requests, if you gave them all that name, the abbreviation I use, TIR, from the search screen, one of the things you can search for is show me all the messages that have a comment TIR on them, and it would then show you all those messages. So that can be a very, very useful tool. So I'm going to log out here and log in as an administrator. And I realize here I only have a couple minutes remaining in my 30 minutes. I do like to try to keep it here to 30 minutes. So you'll notice here that we do have a lot more options available. The important things I want to show you here are really the flexibility of data retention. Is because you don't have to keep all of the data for one set period of time. It can be different based on the different departments. We give you the ability to do that. So you can set a base policy that I'm going to keep everything for 3 years, and then build policies out beyond that. In this case, we're using kind of more private business department names, but this very easily could be police department, public works department, clerk's office, assessor's office, etc., and then set the appropriate minimum policy you want for those departments. You can also do it by specific domain. So if your entity is using different domains for different departments, for example, if the police department had a different domain than the general city government or county government, you can do that. And you can also take it down to the specific email address level. So it may be the case that there's a selectman or elected figure that you need to keep their emails for a set longer period of time. You can build this specifically around their particular email address. And last thing I'll show here is the audit log. This is what I said, basically records what people are doing on the box. So just in the course of this demo here, when I did the search for the email, viewed the email, printed the PDF, did the print to printer friendly, added a comment, all that's been recorded here. You can then actually go to and see a running history of that message to see all the actions that were taken on it. So there's been things done on this message, what I just did today, and also during the demo yesterday. You can see the actions I took there. So I am at my 30-minute mark here, so I am going to wrap up. As I said, there is the ability for you to submit questions through your webinar interface, and I would be more than happy to answer those questions if any are submitted. Short of that, I will hear very brief. Just a second, let me throw contact information up here. So my email address and name are up here, as well as Mark Anderson. As I said, he is the salesperson that's handling the Massachusetts area. I believe a lot of you may have already been in contact with him. As I said, I will have Mark send out the document, the PDF files that are available from the Secretary of State, or you can go out and find them yourselves. Thank you for your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.